have a go. Okay. So start off, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Great, okay. I'm just going to move it over here. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming. So I'm really excited today to be talking to you about October CMS. So this is one of my favorite CMS to work with. I am also a big fan of WordPress, I should say, before I get further into this presentation. I don't want it to seem like I'm bashing WordPress whatsoever. But I do make a couple of comparisons through here just to show how powerful this CMS actually is. So this is going to be a fairly top-level introduction, but hopefully you'll have some useful information to take away by the end of it as well. But before we dive in, let me just do a little bit of self-promotion. So, like John said,
I think Matthew's internet's gone off temporarily.
Yes, for the last 5 years or so, more so now and now. And I'll explain why that's.
The WordPress gremlins got him.
Already.
I was going to say there was an announcement today that Virgin Media's had a massive outage today.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not too bad.
Luckily, I'm currently not on it because I'm on my parents' Wi-Fi just in case. But I thought I'd give everybody a warning that we might get outages.
Well, it is
I
what
sent
it
him
is.
a text message to say that we've lost him. He was saying the other day he upgraded his internet, and then funny enough, it's been funny since. So typical that it's timed out now for him.
Right, he's back. Let's. Right, do you want to start again? And hopefully your internet doesn't cut out, Matthew.
Where did we get to there?
Right. There you go. You had your little rehearsal.
You said hello and then you went.
This
Yes.
is me, and then boom, gone.
So, let's try that. Let's try. Let me go back on my slides. Wait a minute.
Another problem.
My connection to the internet here, I'm based in Sunderland, and it has been absolutely awful every single time I've used it. So I do apologise. Okay, let's try that again. So yeah, like I say, we're talking about October CMS. A little bit about me. I'm the technical lead for a company up in Newcastle called the Unwritten Group. But
You couldn't make it up.
Oh no!
There must be certain trigger words. Oh well, just liven things up a little bit.
Why don't we swap? Why don't you swap speakers around? So
Yeah, we'll give it a second to come back on, and then we'll just see how internet stabilising. Yeah, I do agree. Let Matthew internet settle down a little bit. We'll move Adam forward. That's not a problem. But we will get a presentation out of Matthew, I'm sure. Right, he's coming back in.
right, okay.
Right, do you want to like wait until your internet calms down and speak second, or do you think it's okay now? What do you want to do?
Let's try through the hotspot. If we want to start that again, I'll try this again.
Right, it's the third time looking.
Yes, and if we don't do it now, then we can wait.
Then we'll just reshuffle a little bit.
Yes, no problem. Okay, so yeah, back to about me again. So I am the technical lead at Unwritten Group. Worked in PHP for the past 10 years. I've run multiple teams across the north. I've worked more in Laravel for the last 5 years or so, and predominantly in October for the last couple of years. And I've really got to grips with just how powerful the CMS system is. So yeah, if anybody wants to contact me, my link's on the bottom of the slide on there, which I'll send around after this section as well. So let's jump straight into it. October CMS. But what is it? Basically, October CMS solves a problem that we as PHP developers have had in the industry. So historically, when we're building out quite complicated things in PHP, we like to use frameworks. for October CMS, there's a bit of a gap in the marketplace. Nothing really existed that was any good. For what we needed was that we needed a really solid, robust framework that gave us all of the tools and features that we needed to build these complex applications, whilst also being a really powerful, solid CMS. And that's why October CMS is so great, because it basically solves that problem, gives us the power of Laravel and all of the features that we get with it, while also giving us a really powerful CMS on top of that. So you could say that, again, it bridged the gap between the two. So like I said at the start, again, I'm a big supporter of WordPress as well. October CMS, I think, has more of a place in more complex applications, which we'll get to. So let's have a quick look through the top level benefits of what October CMS provides. So first of all, performance. Whereas the traditional CMS would use databases and tables to serve all of its content, with October CMS, it's predominantly flat file based. So HTML files sit within a theme folder, and then you only load in the components that you need at that particular time on that particular page. So we're not trying to go through every single plugin every time we load a new page. It's not having to go through loads of different pieces of code and functionality. It's just loading in certain bits that we needed to use in order to load it up. The initial load time of October CMS when you first install it, once it's cached its first time, which is quite important, is about 1.06 seconds on my local build. So I'm just using a local homestead build on here. I compared that to a WordPress initial load time, and it was 1.16. So a minor adjustment there. It's really easy to enhance the performance of your website through October CMS as well, because the way October CMS works.
When you got a bit further, I think.
Is it's almost a CMS that just doesn't get anywhere. We can quite quickly include like middleware, which is also. Can everybody hear me okay there? Because I'm getting a connection is unstable.
You broke up again.
Okay.
You did freeze, but you didn't go off for very long. So I can't see your slides. So have you chosen to not show them on purpose, or you?
Oh, sorry, no, it must have went off again. I do apologise.
Right. Well, I'm looking at the chart and I didn't know what you were doing.
Okay, I apologise. Okay, that's on there. Let me know if I go off again, and we'll stop this and we'll try somebody else. Okay, so yeah, so like I was saying, it's really easy to enhance the performance because October CMS doesn't get anywhere. The same with security. I can add in middleware quite quickly with October CMS because it's based on the Laravel framework to authenticate requests more easily and handle and block requests coming in that I don't want to come in. Basically, the kind of customization that I need to do is pretty endless. There's not really any restrictions in that sense in what I can and can't do. It's quite easy to maintain. The way that October CMS works is you have to, if you want to extend functionality, use a plugin. There's no real way around that, which means that all of my code is compartmentalized. I can't hack into the core too much, which means that then coming to update the core October CMS platform in the future is really simple because everything is extended out through October CMS's extensions, and there's very rarely run into any issues by running those updates like that. It's highly customizable in that I can basically go in and easily integrate things without having to extend functionality too much. And a good example of that is implementing a CDN, such as an Amazon S3 bucket. With October CMS, it's just a case of modifying a couple of lines in a config file, saving it, and it just automatically knows where to pull media from in the future. It has a lot of freedom with the back end of the application as well. So when we log in to the CMS, we have settings available as standard that allow us to quite heavily adjust how we both see the back end of the system. So we can heavily customize the style of the CMS. So we can change colors, change branding to fit a particular need for a client. But we can also quite easily modify records and how we look at listings for values and look at editing particular records. So when we look to have forms available, we can actually modify them without having to ever look into a database. We'll come to that in a second as well. Just jump down to the next slide. So the best way to look at the pros of October CMS is look at the tools and features that it provides. One of the main features of this is that it restricts us into an object-oriented way of working. I can't hack away and just write functions anywhere I want with October CMS because it frankly won't work. I have to write them as classes, extend out base classes, and link them in correctly in the way that it needs me to do it. That means that overall, I'm creating a better end product. I'm creating a more maintainable product that somebody else can take on and manage quite easily. And so on within there. Another really good feature is the Ajax functionality that October CMS provides. Now this, if you look at even the front page of October CMS, it leans quite heavily on the fact that they do quite a bit with Ajax. So there are two ways that October allows you to use Ajax. The more basic level is through data attributes. So you can quite simply say within a HTML, for example, a button, you can add a data attribute to specify a PHP function that you want to call when that button is clicked. October CMS then handles everything from calling the actual, creating the JavaScript to make that call, through to pulling the data back and actually placing it somewhere as well. So you can actually specify an ID and a function at the same time to say when that function returns data, pass it through to this particular part on the page. To give you an example, you might have a load more button on a post page. With October CMS, you can literally add a button to that page without having to do much extra work in the background and get that working quite quickly. The reason why that is quite powerful is if you think about the equivalent work involved on WordPress, you would have to write the Ajax call and queue the script, and you'd localize the script. Then you would write the page function to handle everything, which would be normal. Then you would have to hook it then into WordPress's standard Ajax functionality, or you'd have to hook it in twice if you wanted it to work when a user wasn't logged in. So it's quite a time-saving measure there. Like I've just mentioned in the previous slide, it uses YAML files to handle all of record editing. So any backend fields that we see within October CMS, we can modify within YAML files. So when we're extending out and creating our own records, so for example, posts, we don't have to rely on databases and tables in order to store how those fields should be structured when people are editing those records. That has a couple of benefits. One of the key ones being, if we're working in a team of developers, it becomes a lot easier then to manage and version control those fields within that page. If those fields need to change, we're not having to worry about conflicts with databases or conflicts with other people's code, because the version control will literally handle what those changes are within the YAML file, and we'll fix it that way. So another really key feature which we're talking about is APIs. Within October, we could basically build out a platform, or build out a website now, for example, an e-commerce website. We could get it working, have it running, but then also that's then set us up for the future. For example, if we wanted to look at headless e-commerce and build down that route. Now, for those who might not necessarily know what headless is referring to, it's disconnecting the back end of your website to the front end. So having your front end held separately, maybe built on something like React or Vue, and then connecting that front end website through APIs to a back end system. Because we would use October to build something like that out, as from the back end side, we're already prepped with the back end side of that system, and all we have to do is add in some API references, some endpoints, which would then allow us to create a front end website and even test and build that front end website while still connected to the previous one that we've already built. It's quite powerful and quite easy to extend it out in that way because it doesn't get in our way, it just lets us crack on and do what we want. So I've talked plenty about the pros and the benefits. What are the cons? I think one of the main ones is that it has a much lower adoption within developers, within the industry, compared to other platforms. Now, I had a quick check on Built With this morning. And according to BuiltWith, there were 41,000 websites using October CMS on the web. Now compare that to the other platforms that we'll be talking about today. WordPress has 27 million, Drupal has 1.7 million, and Squarespace has 3.8 million. So as a result of having that low adoption, it's less well known. And in return, you'll probably find it harder to get developers who understand and have worked with the platform before. October CMS can also be a little bit harder for somebody non-technical to modify content. As standard, you get access within the CMS to modify those flat files, but that comes with modifying HTML. You don't get your standard WYSIWYG editors, which you'll get with a more convenient CMS system. I've got a couple of screenshots which I'll show you of how that looks as well. The initial load size of October CMS is also a little bit bigger than equivalent. So I did a quick test of that this morning as well. When you first load in October CMS, it's 68 megabytes on the system. Equivalent to WordPress, it's 47 megabytes. So you are getting a lot more tools out the back of that, especially for developers to build stuff quickly. But it's just something there that it is a little bit more on the initial file size, but again, fairly minimal. So I'll have a quick walk through the CMS just so you can familiarize yourself with how it looks. This is a slightly customized version of October CMS. When I say customized, it's just that we've added some more menu items in on the top for what this particular client needed. But as standard, you get access to CMS and media library, and you have access to settings and also a builder plugin, which allows you to very quickly build out new functionality, new records. So in the example there, we've got workouts. You would go into the builder and quite quickly add in a new database table, which would then create a migration, which allows us to version control those, and also then create your models for editing those records and adding new ones in and creating lists. So then you can search through and check what record you've got. So again, you're quite a bit within there. And like I was saying at the start, it gives you a lot of customization. So if you want to, you can change how this entire interface looks through style sheets to match a particular brand or whatever you'd need. And you also get the level of customization in here to modify report widgets, as they call it, which allow you to actually add new widgets into this dashboard and create quite a powerful dashboard if you ever wanted to. So like I was saying, the CMS system, it is a little bit more complicated, a little bit less user-friendly than what you'd be used to with your traditional CMS. You'll see there that as standard, we get a markup interface. We get HTML. So to a non-technical user, this is going to be quite daunting and maybe not something you would want to have. You can extend this out, and with all of the customization options that you have available, you can actually build out and add in WYSIWYG editors to pull through content and then use, I guess, reduce reliance on this particular CMS section. But as standard, this is what you get. You still split out pages, layouts, and partials the same way that you would on most CMS systems, which allows you to create reusable code quite quickly and easily. And we also have components. So components was something I touched on a little bit earlier, which is basically pieces of functionality that we can drag onto pages to tell it when to use it. So if we had a post page, we would create a component that would allow us to list posts and pull back the data that would allow us to list those posts. All we would then have to do is drag that component onto that page, and that functionality would then be available on that page. It can be as simple as that. It also has quite a powerful media library within October CMS that allows you to do folder structures, allows you to modify data, allows you to crop images. It is quite powerful. This will also quite easily link in, like I said at the start, with Amazon S3. So if you wanted to implement a CDN for performance reasons, you could implement it with S3, but a couple of changes, a couple of lines of code changed, and this media library would still be available, but only linked up to S3 instead. So a couple of examples. When I would use October CMS, for me, when performance would be the most critical factor in in the website, and that would take priority over maybe a bit more convenience over, say, another CMS. If performance was absolutely vital, for example, if I was using it on a bespoke or in-house project, if I was building an e-commerce website, for example, in-house, I would use October CMS because I know I would have full control to do exactly what I needed to do over, I guess, more out-of-the-box solutions like Shopify, where I may be restricted into a particular way of working or a particular way that their APIs need to work, or be stuck with limitations on how often I can do something. With October, I can just do whatever I want. I can build it exactly the way I need it to work. When I wouldn't use October CMS, it would be mainly down to budget restrictions. If a client has a fairly low budget, then they're not going to be able to give me the time to be able to do this properly. In that case, they might be better with pre-packaged solutions and accepting the limitations that may come with that. They might not get exactly what they need. But again, it's just something that you have to do an analysis, I guess, at each time. The other key one would be looking at the team, looking at the available skills and knowledge that we have in that team. If I'm working, I guess historically, when I've been working as a freelancer, I've been working with other contractors and they only know WordPress. I'm not going to choose to use October CMS because it's going to be a big learning curve and ultimately hold up the project, which we don't want. Yeah, a couple of reasons there. So that's me. Is there any questions? And thank you for your time.
I know the one thing I want to just ask, just a generic one from the group, is like for the first few slides that we missed, would you be able to share them at a later date?
Yes.
That's not a problem. And another one I've got, funny enough, I do have a site which I host on October CMS, and I think there's been bits there that I've actually found quite interesting. I'm trying to think, is the modules where customers can add their own places to edit stuff, or is it a case where they have to go back to the developer depending on their knowledge of what they know about CMS, like HTML and what they don't?
It depends on their knowledge
Yeah.
entirely. And it depends how it's being built as well.
True.
Ultimately, if it's being built where you haven't steered too far away from what exists as the base October CMS system, you want a customer who isn't technical wouldn't really be able to go in unless they can modify HTML in the flat file sort of structure that we've seen on the CMS there. It'd be quite difficult. The way that I've done the last couple of October CMS sites that I've built is I've implemented more functionality through WYSIWYG editors and stored a little bit more data in the database. Takes it a little bit away from what October CMS is meant to be, but it kind of bridges that second gap between what we need to do as developers versus what the client needs without having to rely on us all the time. So I guess it's an open question, that one really.
I think I know when I asked it, it's like a very wide range question. I know, like as you said, the modules or the way you encode stuff, it is a bit like with WordPress and a few others, it is like depending on what you use and what tools, how easy is it or not. I'm just going to knock the spotlight off just to open it, just so people can see everything else. There we go. Has anyone else got any questions? Nope, not at the minute. If you do have any, of course, we will be having a break after the Drupal one, and of course, we will be around at the end. Right, we'll move on to Adam from Consultant Design to talk about Drupal.